Is New Mexico Governor Susana Martinez the next Sarah Palin? That's the title of a provocative profile in the national magazine Mother Jones that included audio of planning sessions among Martinez and her campaign strategists, where she vilifies her opponents, criticizes the Commission on Status of Women, and implies teachers only work part-time. We also hear a staffer use a highly offensive word to describe then House Speaker Ben Lujan, and it presents a portrait at odds with the one cultivated by Ms. Martinez so far. But will it have any impact on the looming gubernatorial race? Joining us to talk about this and other news of the week, we have one of our line regulars, Tom Garrity of the Garrity Group. Another line regular is back at the table, Daniel Foley, former House Minority Whip. Another former legislator is here as well, Democratic State Senator Dede Feldman. And joining us once again on the line is Julianne Grimm, editor of the Santa Fe Reporter. Julianne, did the Mother Jones article, is my first thought here. We all know what's out there for the tapes and everything. We're going to get to that for a second. But in your view in the overall, did the article reveal anything to you that was spectacularly new, or was this more than what we had from National Journal just a few months previously?
I think that's a good characterization. I mean, the way that Mother Jones strung together some of these allegations, and the tone of that piece was different than the tone of the Nation piece.
Yep.
But for those of us who have been following these stories on the ground in New Mexico, I'm not sure there was a lot new in there. I will say there's one little paragraph in the story that's really not gotten the attention that it deserves, and that's that there are allegations that when the governor was the district attorney and she was campaigning, that she used law enforcement resources for opposition research. By that we mean these allegations are that she ran license plates when she would see someone with a bumper sticker for the other candidate, or there was a Susana Tejana bumper sticker that she didn't like, and really that's kind of been ignored. And the tapes that you mentioned really are getting more of the attention, but if those allegations are true, that's serious.
That's going to be one to follow. That's interesting, absolutely. Tom, let's talk about those tapes Julianne just mentioned. Obviously, they exploded across the land, across our state, and people have heard them if you're inclined to hear them by now. It does make things different, though, doesn't it? When you hear people talking, it's a lot different than what people say. But how much credence do you put in the fact that it was a private conversation between her and her staff, clearly not meant to be heard by anybody else? Fair game still?
Well, whether it's fair game, I guess, is up for attorneys to debate in court. But I would say that, whatever conversations you have in private, you should be anticipating those to become public. For me, it was like, okay, so she curses. Okay, Lyndon Johnson cursed.
Right.
It's not, on either side, but, if cursing actually helps to turn New Mexico's economic boat around, then let's pony up the tip jar so we get more, more stuff going. But, when you look at it, I think it was really more as far as the cursing and such and the characterizations could hurt her in northern New Mexico with the staff comments with regards to the late Ben Lujan. I found that particularly disturbing. But, overall, the article itself, I don't think will impact New Mexico race. It's just more, it's one of those other setups for the big national race. That's
interesting.
Place.
Dan, good to see you again. I've got a quick question. Should the governor have apologized to Ben Lujan's widow for those comments? Why not?
First of all, she didn't say it. She didn't say it. So I think any apology from her would have been seen as, I think it would have been seen as less than honest.
Why?
Secondly is
I got to ask you that. Why? Why would it be less than honest?
Governor didn't say it.
I understand.
I can't apologize for what you say. I can't apologize for what's said by somebody else. The other thing that I think is important is that when you listen to the tapes, it was being told to her that someone else said this.
Sure.
And so I think the whole conversation, though, is really, you're seeing the level of elections going to a whole different area that I think is bad for New Mexico. I think is bad nationally. You have to be able to have some private time. You have to be able to talk. I posted a deal on Facebook and was talking, I'm sure you saw it, Gene, that said, this would be like taping the halftime speech at a Notre Dame football game and sending it to the Pope and saying, what do you think? That's not the way things happen. These people were talking amongst themselves. Someone stole that conversation from them. And if you don't have that time that you can do things intimately, but what I think, we talk about that we think that the potential for her doing this is a bigger, the using the staff is a bigger question. I think the bigger question is, if you look at who's running with this, It's Weber. Weber's the only guy that's running with this.
We will get to him in a minute. I got to get in Senator Feldman here. Same question. I'm very curious your point of view on the apology or not.
I think the governor definitely should have apologized, and she could have put a lot of this to rest by apologizing. But the fact that she didn't shows that she is setting the tone here, and that she has surrounded herself with folks who are cynical, who are intimidating, who use innuendo, who call the Speaker of the House, who was suffering from cancer at the time, a retard. Well, doesn't say great things.
To be fair,
about
he was
people with
relating that he had
disabilities.
heard somebody say
he
that.
sounds like one.
He sounds like
Sure.
okay. He sounds like
but
a retard.
on that point, let me swing to Tom on that too. On that point, a lot of folks I have talked to, all right, she didn't say it. She may not feel she needs to apologize, but she did have an interesting reaction to the term that Mr. Kennicott used, and a lot of folks have a problem with that.
Well, I don't recall specifically what her reaction was, but how she came about in the public. While she didn't apologize, she was talking more about how she has an accent, and so for her that was about the only way that she could really address the issue in her perspective and such.
Gotcha. Julie, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to say that I think while Weber's campaign has come out very strongly, actually my recollection is that the first Democrat to jump on this Mother Jones bandwagon was Lawrence Rael, who sent out an email very early that morning. And by the end of the day, I believe almost all of the Democrats running
So are we
for
going to the
governor
Weber
made a
stuff
comment.
now, or because you cut me off? Are we
You
going
could
to that?
get a Weber shot in, sure.
No, I'm just asking. I mean, I get cut off, and I'm just making sure we're.
That's quite right. Go ahead and finish your point, Juliana. We'll
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that Weber's campaign put out, was it yesterday, calling Martinez's staff a fraternity of misogynistic thugs, I believe is the quote.
Yeah.
I don't see how the name calling in this election is really serving the voters, no matter which direction it's coming from or going.
Fair enough. You have a thought on that?
No, I just, I think a couple things. One is, Senator Feldman, you raised some very good points. But you and I both, having been in the legislature, sitting in the House lounge and the Senate lounge, talking to other legislators, we've heard many people make comments, say things in conversations that if that was put out in the public, nobody would appreciate that. And I think hijacking a private conversation is not going to play well with New Mexicans. I think what's going to play well with New Mexicans and is setting this race up for, we kind of started talking about, is this going to affect Governor Martinez? I don't think it's going to. I think most people are going to say she cusses. I think anybody that tries to say that she's cavalier when it comes to the developmentally disabled is going to lose that fight. She has made major life decisions to take care of her sister. So I don't think anybody can, try to pull that card on her. The third one
Let me
is...
ask you a question. Is it not, in fact, revealing, however, of I'm not saying this directly about Ms. Martinez, but of one's true nature when you're in private?
No.
Because the folks
Yes.
I know who are great leaders, they are very, very, very consistent with people.
I
Be
think
it in the public eye,
no,
their staff.
I don't. I think that's
they
unfair.
They don't indulge in this sort of backroom bar thing.
Oh yes, they do. Everybody. Gene,
No, everybody does
Gene,
not,
you
Dan,
and
I
I,
have to
Gene,
say.
you and I have had many conversations just in passing and in talking that if someone took a piece of or statements out of, but I think what this campaign is going to boil down to is you have folks like Alan Weber that are using these hate ads to go after Governor Martinez.
He has not run any hate ads.
Calling people misogynist thugs is not a hate
not a
ad?
hate ad.
Well, okay, well, Senator, we'll disagree that calling someone a misogynist thug is not a hate
Everything was
ad.
backed up with police documents.
But calling someone a misogynist thug, but I will say this, I mean, this is a guy who's having fundraisers with domestic terrorists. This is a guy who, when the time that Governor Martinez was laughing at this, he was saying that our military people are committing murder in Afghanistan. And that's the kind of stuff that's not going to play well with New Mexicans. That's an overwhelmingly strong military background. And I think when it gets to that, that's where this
Here's what
campaign's
happens,
going
Tom.
to go.
What happens when, and it seems to me there could be more of these being released. And you can fight, this particular forest fire that Dan's mentioning, that, but then you're always going to be going at it. And at some point, a narrative starts to develop about a person once you hear them.
Sure. And I think, using that as an argument, there's a clear, narrative. In fact, Steve Terrell pointed out very, very well that, perhaps the most transparent administration not on their own doing.
Right.
Because, you have so many different staff members who have been caught on tape,
Yes.
saying disparaging things, being thuggish, if you will.
Right.
And if that's the way it is in private, is it the way in public? I guess to the voters right now, that doesn't seem to bother them. We'll have to see in the election time.
My prediction is she drops 2 or 3 points over the next week, and then she climbs back 4 or 5 points, I still think she's going to be hovering around 60, mid 50s, low 60s, and I think she'll win the election regardless of who the candidate is with a 56% approval
Finishes
rating.
up.
An
Katie?
interesting thing is that all these tapes and all these things, the matters of tone, have come to light because of Republican leaks. So it's the Republicans who are leaking this information. It's not Democratic, certainly the media has picked up some of it, but it's the leakers who have been disturbed themselves by this tone, and they have, some of them, are going public.
I appreciate you getting that in. Sorry about that, Julian. Got to move on. Coming up, we look at ongoing problems with overcrowding and mental health demands at the Bernalillo County Metropolitan Detention Center.